Here with us now from Capitol Hill, Republican representative from California and chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman Ed Royce. And Mr. Chairman, as chairman, you have special importance here. So do you plan to support the president's plans to close in on ISIS?
Yes, I do, but I think also it's important that the president lay out a strategy, long-term strategy that will bring on board allies. Certainly the Arab League has shown a responsiveness now to getting involved here. Our NATO allies are talking about joining the campaign to attack ISIS. And I think, as the Arab League said the other day, they want to hear the plan. I think members of Congress feel the same way. We'll have next week the Secretary of State up to get into the details. But yes, I think we need to
should there be official authorization, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I think the president would argue that under existing law, he has that authority. But as we hear the detail and scope of the plan, we can see if more authorization is needed.
Some people have talked about limiting the amount of time that Congress would authorize it. Do you think, because we've heard Republicans talk about how timelines are a bad thing, should it be open-ended?
Well, I think we're a little ahead of the game here because Wednesday we're going to hear the full plan, Joe. And frankly, Tuesday, the leadership on both sides of the aisle will hear the details as well. The following week, we'll really bore into the details on our committee. We can see what's envisioned. And I think what I want to hear is that the focus is going to be on the training base, upon where ISIS brings in these foreign fighters and gives them this capability, because it's that safe haven, it's that sanctuary that is used to prepare the ISIS fighters from all over the world now. Most of them are not from the Middle East, to attack not just these targets, but also to go back and attack Britain or potentially Australia or the United States. You hear these threats. And I think getting at that base is most important, knocking out those camps.
So the president talked an awful lot in his interview on Meet the Press about Iraq, did not talk that much about Syria, and yet this morning a Washington Post poll shows overwhelming support for attacks even into Syria. Do you agree with other policy analysts that you can't defeat ISIS unless you go after them in Syria?
I absolutely believe this. And about 7 months ago, myself and Eliot Engel, the ranking member, Democratic member, had suggested that we target in Syria before they come across the border into Iraq. One of the missed opportunities here is that had we used air power when these columns were on the march, out on the open desert, you could have obliterated, these columns. And let's get back to that point. They have a base of operation. They have munitions depots there. They're doing their training there. Hit that target.
So if we hit the targets in Syria, the next question is it not a zero-sum game? By hurting ISIS, are we not helping Assad, strengthening his grip on power in Syria?
Here's why I think not. And I met last night with leaders here from the Free Syrian Army. We had a late conversation. We forget that there's a third faction in that struggle. For the last 3 years, the Free Syrian Army has been fighting ISIS on the ground, and they've been asking us for support, for weapons. And I think that probably will be part of the president's plan. We should have been supporting the Kurds with the anti-tank missiles that they needed. We should have been supporting the Free Syrian Army. They've both been asking for this. I think we'll hear rolled out a plan to do that probably from the president.
As chairman, you also have more of a view of what's going on inside, behind closed doors. Do you think the president has been deliberate and effective so far, or disengaged?
Well, I think we've deferred on this, and especially over the last 7 months, as these victories were rolled up into Crete, city by city, Fallujah. In each case, Mosul, there was a request by our embassy in Iraq, from us on the committee, be decisive, hit these targets. You have the authority to do it as President of the United States, and we haven't done it. So now we're to the point where there is a consensus, but it's a little late in the game because they've taken a lot of territory, and they've got this feeling now that they're sort of invincible. They need to be knocked back hard in order to send the message to the insurgents, far from invincible. the war is now going to be taken back to them. They're not going to kill Americans with impunity.
All right, Chairman Ed Royce, thank you so much. Always good to see you, buddy.
Thank you.
All right.
You know what's interesting as you go into this Washington